Welcome to Reach the World ASAP. My name is Pastor Scott Griswold, working with ASAP Ministries. On April 25, a missionary family that I know were in Kathmandu, Nepal, worshiping God with their family and another family on a Sabbath morning in their apartment. The missionary father was on the other side of town, about to come back and join them. After some songs, the oldest of the 4 children was telling the story of the walls of Jericho and how they came tumbling down. Suddenly, everything began to shake. A 7.9 Richter scale earthquake was hitting the country, the worst Nepal has experienced in 80 years. The floor shook so violently that the 2 families could not move down the stairs and out the door to safety. Instead, they huddled in the middle of another doorframe, hoping and praying that they would be okay. Outside, apartment buildings 6 and 7 stories tall came crashing down. But inside, they were okay. Immediately, their thoughts went to the father. Was Daddy okay? Across the town, he was standing in the courtyard of several buildings. Where to run? No time to decide. A 4-story building disintegrated before his eyes, crashing just 20 yards away from him. Shaking, praying, though covered with dust, he realized he was okay. But what about his family? The electricity was out. Phone service was impossible. It took him 8 hours to pick his way through the city to find out if his family was okay. They hugged him again and again and bowed to thank God for protection. That night, they slept with 30 of their Nepali neighbors in a community tent, thankful for some safety from the cold and the rain. Across the city and into the countryside, including 35 of the 75 districts, the destruction was enormous. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist shrines were flattened. Historical buildings completely destroyed. Around 600,000 houses were completely ruined. More than 5,000 people were killed, and thousands more were injured. At the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital in Nepal, called Shir Memorial Hospital, as the earthquake calmed, the leaders praised God as they realized the hospital had survived the quake. Immediately, they began to help the injured. The hospital has only 150 beds, so they began setting up outside to try to help those who are in desperate need of care. As the dust began to settle after the quake, people immediately started searching for those who were trapped. Cries could be heard, and rescuers tried their best to dig through the concrete and the bricks to find them. Some could not be heard. Maybe the little 4-month-old boy named Sonet Awal was just too shocked to cry. It's more likely that it was just all the noise that kept him from being heard. But later, his family didn't give up and were desperately searching, trying to get the Nepali army to keep up their search. They heard his cry. 22 hours after the buildings had fallen, they lifted him up to safety. Can you imagine their joy? It took 18 hours to find another person, a mother of 4, who was trapped. A team of rescuers from India spent the next 18 hours digging to set her free. Those 4 children won't have to grow up without their mother because those rescuers didn't give up. But the hours wore on after the earthquake. They say it's almost impossible to survive being buried longer than 3 days. How can the body go on without warmth, without food, without water? One 27-year-old named Rishi Kanal was sure he would never survive. But someone high above was using listening devices to try to pick up sounds of life. They'd even gathered carbon dioxide detectors to catch a rising breath. It was a group of French rescuers this time. People had gathered from all over the world. Finally, they picked up his feeble cries. They drilled and drilled through the concrete. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8, and finally 10. They pulled him out. He could barely talk. He needed surgery, but he was alive. His family was elated. He would survive. And now the rain is falling, and organizations are rushing to bring shelter. It's cold. 1.4 million people are in need of food. There's always the danger of disease spreading rapidly in such conditions. So many are trying to help. All these efforts show the very best of the human nature that's made in the image of God, rising to meet this horrific tragedy. And I am so thankful that our church is one of them. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has an organization called Adventist Development Relief Agency. It's known as ADRA. Around the world they work and they're ready for disasters like this. Immediately after the earthquake, they organized response efforts. 10 other emergency response team members flew in from other countries to help lead. They're taking plastic sheeting out so people can put up little shelters and stay out of the rain and the cold. They're providing food and water and health care wherever they can. Just recently, they tried to get to a village, but the roads were so impassable they had to turn around. The very next day, they were up again, trying to go through again. Don't you wish you could be out there to help dig someone out from under the concrete? Wouldn't you love to set up a tent and put some rice and vegetables into their hands? Maybe you will in the future. Maybe you'll be able to do that as a life career, helping out with ADRA or some other organization in such horrible times, or maybe be able to fly in on a short mission trip right after an event like that. Even right now, with communityservices.org, you can find out how to be trained and prepared for disaster situations that may come up in our own country or elsewhere. But right now, there is a way that you can help the people in Nepal. It's as easy as going to adra.org, that's ADRA.org, and put in your credit card numbers. Yes, we can help soothe this horrific tragedy. We can rescue a Nepali earthquake victim. Scripture is clear that such tragedies will continue to increase until Jesus comes. It's our response and love in the midst of them that helps show that God still cares, that He has a plan to soon end the pain and suffering. So let's share His love. Let's rescue the perishing. Together, let's reach the world ASAP.